Hi, welcome to CineMunn Podcast. I'm your host, Vince Munn, joined tonight by Tommy Metropolis.
Ali.
And Benjamin Briggs.
Hey, everybody.
Tonight we're going to be a little condensed in focusing just on two topics for the show. First thing we're going to address is the obvious, very publicized Sony hacks. Tom, you seem to have the most knowledge out of the three of us here about the Sony hacks. What exactly went down?
I mean, as far as tracking it, yeah, I've been tracking it on as soon as it kind of surfaced, but first what I heard was the interview, which was going to be released on December 25th, got pulled, and it was kind of not a clear reason why at first, and then all of a sudden they came out with saying that, yes, Sony's Pictures Entertainment was hacked, film was leaked, and they gotten threatening messages saying, do not release the film, and light of that being leaked, there's also other material as far as internal personal data that's been leaked. And it's kind of escalated to the point to where do they want to continue with releasing this movie or not? And Sony has started saying, given theaters opportunity, it's like, you don't have to show this movie if you don't want to. There was multiple chains, Reading Cinemas, AMC,
Cinemark, Ultrastar, Edwards, they've all kind of declined showing the film.
Yeah, they've said to Sony, it's like, we do not want to show the film if there's been threats being made. So, because they have backed down, Sony altogether just said, we're pulling the interview. There's going to be no theatrical release. There's going to be no video on demand. No nothing whatsoever as far as the film being available for the public. And it's one of those things that's, we should be able to create a movie, or our studio should be able to create a movie and not be harassed by, some outsider saying you can't release this movie because it's so controversial to the point that it discussed this one person. I mean, we've had movies in the past that have had so much controversy behind it, and they still get released because it's a form of art. Not saying every form of art is demeaning and unappreciated, but that's art. It's not going to be for everyone, and that's why there's so many forms of it. But, as I go on to controversial movies, there's movies like Die Another Day, where North Korea was perceived as the antagonist, yeah. And, Team America, I'm pretty sure I don't really need to go into that one.
I really don't think puppets are that threatening.
Well, no, and that's probably why it was given a bit of, this is just a joke or whatever like that. But at the same time...
Well, it's satirized. Everyone has satirized Michael Moore, North Korea, Screen Actors Guild, our own presidency at the time.
Yeah.
Just kind of poked fun at everyone.
And
drowning the Panama Canal. That was funny.
Yeah. And what... people have gone and saying about this is, I've heard a couple people saying that this is a publicity stunt, and part of me is like, publicity stunts are not to be this damaging to a company. Sony's really hurt their reputation by coming out with this and not releasing the film. I mean, I can understand the reasons and why they did it, but we've got actors such as Ben Stiller and George Clooney voicing their opinion on how, they do not like the fact that a studio, Sony Pictures Entertainment, has denied the film to be released. And and when you think of it, it's Sony Pictures Entertainment. They first said, it's like, we like this idea. We want to greenlit it. We want to fund it, and we want to market it. We want to do everything we can to get it to release. And then what happens is that they have a vulnerability. They get hacked, and all of a sudden it's just things just blow up surrounding this one film. And it's to me, I don't see how it could be a publicity issue.
I still see, even though you have big name celebrities who have come out and said they don't think it was right the studio pulled the film of an artist project, but again, while it might be the artist's project, it's still the studio's film. Certain films are put on hold for a reason, for whatever they may be. In this case, it's a security issue. It's a public safety issue. With the threats that have been made, supposedly from North Korea about the Sony hack, that if they do show the film, terrorist acts similar to or around the range of 9/11 will be had because of this film. And again, that's not a risk I'm willing to take. That's not a risk anyone's willing to take. The studio doesn't need to be responsible for that. They don't want to be, which is why they pulled the film. And B, as a movie chain, you don't want to be responsible for that either. Certain things you are responsible for. Obviously, if there's an electric issue in a movie theater, that's their problem, and they need to take care of it and let you know. If it's a threat made against a theater, against a film being shown in that theater, that is also their prerogative to let you know, we are not going to do A because the repercussions will be B. And because of that, we're going to protect you, our paying audience, people who basically pay our bills and help keep this building up and running. We're not going to put you in jeopardy just because you want to see this movie, or I want to see this movie, or Ben over there wants to see this movie. I mean, that's not worth the risk of people. And again, like I said, certain films are pulled and held for whatever reason. Like when Red Dawn came out, the Red Dawn with Chris Hemsworth came out, I believe, last year in November, or roughly around that time. That film had been made in 2009, 2010. It was filmed, produced, edited, shot, everything ready to go, and the studio took it and put it on the shelf. The reasoning behind it, they saw potential in their lead. Chris Hemsworth at the time was still an unknown actor. They waited for him to make his breakout in Thor, and they piggybacked on that fame and that star power, and then released the film afterwards. Same thing with Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods came out I believe came after the Avengers came out, as well after Thor. You've already made Chris Hemsworth a bankable star. Joss Whedon is now a well-known and loved director of a big studio film. Now we're going to take advantage of that and release another movie he did that was shot 2 years before any of this happened, because we know we can make money on it. And whether this film is released or not, I think it will make money. When and if it's on video on demand, if it's straight to DVD, Blu-ray sales, if it does eventually come out into theaters, it will make money because of what has happened. Most of these films that have controversy behind them only draws appeal to it. Right. It makes you want to see it more. Like when The Passion came out in 2004. The first thing that brought you to it was obviously the subject matter, the way it was shot, the language it was shot in, and then because of the rise that came out of pop culture and religious sects about the film and what it represented and what it didn't represent and how certain people were reflected in certain lights, made it more appealing. It draws more to you. And I see that happening with The Interview. Obviously, it is a satire. It's made itself a satire. These are fake names. These are all actors. There's no one here who is that person. It's a caricature of that person. Like when Neil Patrick Harris in the Harold and Kumar series. When he plays Neil Patrick Harris, in quotes, he's playing a caricature of himself. And that's the same bit here. This is a caricature of North Korea's leader. So really, I see, if you can't laugh at yourself, that's a problem.
Well, as far as comedy goes, I know the comedy films haven't really been at the focal of this whole delaying movies and stuff like that. As you brought up Red Dawn and a couple others, is the one I remember. And this wasn't an international issue. It was a Phone Booth with Colin Farrell. Mm-hmm. It was in light of the sniper events that was going on.
Yeah, the DC Sniper.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yes.
And that's one film I recall that was also delayed too. And I can understand because that film is dramatic. Mm-hmm. It's got that sense of reality, realism behind it, which is why it was delayed. Mm-hmm. Now, The Interview has that comedy and exaggerated scenario. It's where it's who on earth is going to take it seriously? It's a movie to entertain and to have fun, and that's where I feel people are getting they're upset because they're like, this is a movie about to be humor and to exaggerate and to have fun, but instead someone has put a different look at it, different standpoint.
But when you step back and really look at it, look at where today's technology is, does it really seem that far off from being possible? What they're suggesting in that film.
Well,
because if you put yourself back in the 60s and 70s when James Bond came out, and you had the cool car that changed into a submarine, you had the cool gadgets and stuff. You've never seen that before. When I saw Casino Royale in 2009, all this equipment I have seen. I've worked with defibrillators. You see all this stuff now. We have caught up with our imagination. And in some ways, in some skewed version I have of it, we have caught up to what the universe is saying. It technically could be possible. It could be plausible. I mean, like, let's just for hypothetical, let's say that the entire film could be true. Maybe that's how they're looking at it.
You could look at that. You could look at any film.
I'm saying that's how North Korea might be taking it.
But no, and that's it. Anybody can perceive a film as being real or not. It depends on kind of just their reality and their perception of it. But just to me, as Americans, we know, well, in general, we know that it's there to entertain. It's not there to ridicule. It's not there. I mean,
well, it is a, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, so to speak.
Yeah.
And how we perceive things is how, from my point of view, will always be different from your point of view, be different from Ben's point of view, be different from my wife's point of view. We're all going to look at one picture and see several different things.
Sure.
So, Ben, what do you think about all this?
My biggest thing is if you don't like the movie, just don't go. If you can't, have a laugh, if you can't have fun with anything, just don't go. There's no point in causing any trouble. There's no point in stirring things up. If you don't like it, it's the best thing you can do to not have any attendance or anything. Just don't go.
And that's the response that I was expecting. Is like, I know some people are up in the air of this movie. It's like, hey, you don't have to go. It's just a movie. Not every movie is released for you to attend. It's there for the people that know they're going to enjoy it. And just the other part of this, too, is the movie was going to be released, but because the fact, and as this is the part where when it comes to publicity stuff and all that, if Sony got hacked, I doubt they would hack themselves, knowing that people already know their track record. I mean, back in March 2011, the PlayStation Network was hacked. It's a different branch of Sony, but it's the fact that it deals with their security. And earlier this year, in August, the PlayStation Network was taken down with the denial of service attack. And those are things to me. It's like you hear about this publicized, and you're kind of thinking, okay, what's coming on down the road? And then you hear about this. I mean, so it gets to the point where I'm like, you got to have a little bit of integrity when you're taking care of your property and you're trying to, appease your audience.
What do you think the fallout's going to be with all this? Let's say a 6-month period, come May or June. Do you think we're still going to be talking about this? Do you think it's still going to be a big issue? Or do you think Sony will quietly be taking care of things between them, the government, and whoever else is really involved? Obviously, we, the public, we're not really involved. We're spectators. We can comment. We can make our own ideas, our own theories, our own thoughts on it, good or bad, positive, negative. But ultimately, we don't have to deal with it. We will move on with our lives forward in other things, in other news and media. But what do you think the fallout will be for the studio?
For the studio, they're definitely going to take a more careful approach on what they're going to release in the future, and that's actually a concern from, the celebrities in Hollywood. They're saying that now we have to be very sensitive on kind of how we do our films, how we project our comedy and our actions in film and other related media, and that level of censorship they don't want. They want the ability to be free and be open and just be able to write their character and portray their character as the way it's intended. But this has brought on a level of censorship that's going to filter down probably to other studios, and it's all going to start with this incident. So it's going to be kind of a waterfall effect until someone eventually says, you know what, screw it, I'm making the film the way I want it. And there are those directors out there, and there's those actors will get behind it. And they're going to say, I'm going to make the films the way as I want it to be. But right now, there's this bit of fear that comes from this, and it's going to be affecting multiple studios.
Do you think like the other places, like let's say Universal, Paramount, Disney, Marvel, New Line. Do you think all these other studios are now kind of buffering down on their security and such to
absolutely.
try to say we're not going to be number 2?
Absolutely. And I mean, now, yeah, I mean, when it comes to cyber threats and stuff, you're actually supposed to, companies nowadays are supposed to have people try to penetrate their own network. That's what is supposed to happen as a test. Yeah.
That's right.
And that's why, like, you don't hear much regarding these other companies as far as Microsoft. I mean, usually these events don't happen. And, you know, Microsoft is one of those companies that people ridicule and make fun of. But at the same time, I see a company like Microsoft, they're asking people, how do you hack this? How do you break this? We'll pay you. What device do you want to hack next? They acknowledge the fact they have flaws, and that's how they make themselves better. On the other hand, just some companies don't do that, and that's the thing where I'm like, when something hits you, it's going to hit you bad. And this is one of the things I think it's not, and it's not something proven small. It's something that is huge, and as I was saying, it's going to filter into other studios, and that's, yeah, I mean, not what they want, but that's kind of like the reality that it is now. Is just one person can kind of ruin it for another, and you know, that's sad to say, but and at the other time too, I'm just, the thing that gets me kind of like
riled up.
Yeah, is you know, Sony has first given the option of theaters don't have to show it, and then a couple days later, I believe another threat was made. Sony's like, okay, we're scrapping the film altogether.
Well, I think
no trace of
that
it.
came about, I think, excuse me for interrupting, because CineMunn came out and said, we're not going to show the film.
Right.
So Sony was okay with that. And then one by one, all the bricks fell, and every theater chain was saying no. So it actually makes sense that Sony would pull the film, because no one's willing to show it.
Right.
So why would you still have it out there if no one's going to be playing it for you?
That's true.
So I mean, like I mean, with the way the poll has been perceived, it makes it seem like Sony's just simply saying no to the people, when really it's the theater saying no. The theater is saying, we're not going to put ourselves and our audience at risk. Thank you, good day. And so you don't want to stand there, you know, with your hat in your hand.
Right.
You're going to put it back on.
You know, if there's a risk or whatever like that, you don't take the risk. You play safe and rather be sorry.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, and again, it's like, they've been hacked, so the damage has been done. How much more damage can you really, you know, stand by? So, you know, if you release the film, there's a potential. It's not, you know, whether it was going to happen or not, we don't want to know. We don't want to find out. But, yeah, you don't want to stand by and watch that happen. So the fact that they pulled the film, it was a justifiable reason, because you don't want to see any more damage happen. You got to take responsibility. And that's one of the things that they're taking right now, is Sony, is they're taking responsibility, saying, hey, yes, there's been this kind of, you know, damage done. This incident has really hindered kind of our product, you know, ability to put out a film. And what was it? When Sony had given the call that said, we're going to pull the film altogether, it was, I believe, a theater in Texas. They were going to release Team America on the 27th.
Yes, they were.
And actually, I just read up today that that's being pulled too.
Yeah, that's being pulled as well.
And all of the people that bought their tickets in advance are going to be refunded.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by it's filtering out into different studios, and one theater's, again, by saying one theater says no, the other theater's going to say no. So now it's going to be to the point to where movies might be made and theaters might just say no, thank you.
Well, theaters always able to. I mean, when it comes to films, it's usually a bid. Like we here in San Diego, we have our AMC Theater in La Jolla, and then a couple miles away we have the ArcLight cinemas. Those theaters bid with the studios for who gets what film.
Yeah.
So it's not just every theater, every chain is guaranteed this, and that.
Right.
So I mean, it's always, especially when you have two big names like that, like ArcLight and AMC together, in one area, it's going to draw your crowd to one or the other, depending on what you have to offer. So, I kind of lost my train of thought with that one.
No, it's just, well, But Sony did make a statement, or not they made it, but it was their lawyer had mentioned that they're going to release the film sometime. It was kind of vague, like it wasn't, because it's not really for certain. Like, is he kind of hinting that the film's going to come out? But the lawyer did say, or their lawyers came out and said that the film is going to be released. We don't know how, we don't know when, but it's somehow one way or another going to be released.
I think it will.
And I think it will be, too.
I think it'll end up out there. I think it will end up out there.
Further into that, as I was looking into it, they said it'd be released on Crackle, which is a video streaming service that is owned by Sony. So that's probably one place where people might be able to watch it. And when is it going to come out? We have no idea, but that's probably the place to turn to if you do want to catch a glimpse at the interview and see what this movie is really about. The other thing to me is just we don't know the ending. So that was kind of the part to me. It's like, yes, this movie can be fun. It can be controversial. It can be demeaning. It can be whatever. But it ends on a high note for North Korea, the antagonist. Mm-hmm. But we don't know as the audience because we haven't seen it.
That's fine.
So that's the other part to me. It's like, it's kind of also judging a book by its cover. And yeah, let's say if you're going to make a final judgment or whatever, then, at least have kind of like a reason to. Like, say you've read a book or you've seen the whole movie. It's kind of like saying, I saw the first 10 minutes, I didn't like it, it's a terrible movie. You can't say it's a terrible movie because you didn't finish it.
It's like when I read Tale of Two Cities. I hated that book till like the last 2 chapters.
So while I saw Meet the Spartans, I barely got half an hour through.
I know, that's one of the few movies I think you've walked out of.
Can't do it.
You can do it. I actually finished it. I finished Meet the Spartans. It was horrible, but yeah, I still finished it. I don't think I've ever walked out of a movie that I can remember.
The Last Airbender?
I never even saw it.
Okay, good for you.
So that doesn't count. Okay. I never saw Last Airbender.
But no, it's again going on the Sony hacks. It's very clear that movies do affect. I guess. They can affect anybody. But the other thing I see this as is this was a movie made in the U.S., and we're not asking if Europe likes it. We're not asking if China likes it. We're not asking... this is a movie that's made...
Well, it's a movie made under our Bill of Rights of free speech and First Amendment's free
Correct.
Speech. And we're able to... That's one of the best things about America is, we are given the right to say what we want without the threat of persecution.
Right.
Obviously, everything has a limit to what you can and can't do. And this did not cross that limit, so I see no reason why anyone in America should have any offense to this film.
That's also what I'm going by with, we haven't even seen the whole movie, so how do we know if it's crossed the limit? Yeah, it can be exaggerated, it can be fun, but if we don't know how it concludes, how it ends, we can't say it's ultimately offensive or just stupid comedy and it's fun. Yeah, the fact that something of this magnitude has gone to other studios, how is it going to affect future comedies? How is it going to affect, and like you said, going into our freedom of speech and all that, how is it going to affect movies' ability to portray certain instances and stuff like that? Or how do we take our drama films and talk about the reality aspect of something that happens in Great Britain or something that happens in Russia? Is it going to get to the point to where Russia is going to have input and say, oh, you can't release this because there is a sensitive topic in this film? Or, so that's the point where this is kind of getting into. It's like, are we really, how much damage is this going to do? And I hope it does not get to that point, but it's a reality aspect, and that's why, again, with the whole thing with people saying this is a publicity stunt and stuff, I was like, there's so much that has happened, it cannot be at this point. Now, there are people out there that can gauge a hack or something to make it look like somebody else is involved. They can get into someone's server, bounce off their server, and go into a different network or something like that if they're that skilled. Some people are, and that's what, again, like as you said, yeah, the interview is a comedy, it's exaggerated, but it could be a thing of reality, and that's what I'm getting at. Someone can literally be that good to go into a server from wherever and bounce back into another company server and make it look like somebody else did it. And that kind of goes with the next thing is I read up that North Korea is saying they're not involved. Obviously, we don't have really any proof of that, except the FBI is saying that they're, that they traced it back to North Korea. And that's...
So it's kind of up in the air right now, then.
It's kind of up in the air.
That's fine.
And, I mean, am I gonna... Who do you really, I don't know, trust on this issue? But there's so many different media sites, there's so many different sources that kind of depict this story as one way or another. But as the ultimate issue that I'm looking at is Sony was hacked, and that's how this whole thing started. Because if nothing happened to Sony, the audience would have been able to see this movie as intended, and they would have gotten the box office numbers that they were looking for. Right.
Speaking of box office numbers, The Hobbit, I guess, is estimated to finish off this weekend at $90 million domestically. I still see that as a good film. Not the best film in the series, but it's still a good film, a good number, and expected to take number one over the weekend. That's a film I've recently seen. What are some other films you guys have seen, you've watched, or last week? Ben, what's something you've been watching over the past few weeks or so? Any films you've seen or ones that you're looking forward to?
Well, recently I've seen, nice throwback to the early 90s, we've seen the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, number 1 and number 3. Unfortunately, I was out, missed secretly used. But I still get saw that. Nice use of the foam latex suits and all the technology we had at the time.
Did you ever get a chance to see the new one?
I haven't. I've seen the commercials.
Bits
I've
and
heard
pieces
about the infamous elevator scene. And for me, I'll really appreciate just, how fun that one was. The first one. You get to see what it was like back then. And, I prefer it. I like being able to look back and, see how these people move around in these big suits. Not like the CGI and stuff, but really, they look like real Ninja Turtles. The Master Splinter looks real, The Shredder looks intimidating. I got to see that. In fact, I even got to see Marlo and Otis. So for anybody who's paying attention out there for our movie quotes, that was our third episode?
I believe it was a third
or second episode, I think. And, then I didn't see it. I mean, I saw it when it was in theaters, but I didn't see it on TV. But Blackfish is back out there.
Blackfish is back out there,
so,
being kind of repushed again with the recent SeaWorld company layoffs. A friend of yours got laid off with that.
Personally speaking, I think it's pretty insensitive for the holiday times. And it's bad enough that a lot of people's already lost their jobs, but now they got to, see the reason why they don't have their jobs now.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, the Black... I mean, you talk about a controversial film. You're talking about The Interview and Sony. Blackfish was a very controversial film. It was one that I was very hesitant to watch because of everything going on around it and all the backlash we were seeing in the media. I mean, locally, we're here. We broadcast from San Diego, so we have a SeaWorld park here. So seeing all the news almost on a daily basis coming out of that park from protesters, both for and against Blackfish, was really a big issue. And I finally sat down and watched the film myself, and it's this is my opinion. All film is subjective. What I say does not necessarily mean you agree with me. I saw the film as a personal attack, a personal bias, and in no way falls under the title of documentary. I mean, a documentary is supposed to give you the truth, not a perspective. Obviously, truth is perspective, but this was just the harshest turn you ever saw. Completely defaming people and just slandering. It might as well just been a political debate. I mean, it's just god-awful. I mean, Tommy, have you ever seen Blackfish?
No, that's one film. I don't know. Like it's like you were saying. I was up in the air. Do I want to watch it? And then as more and more that I've read about the film. Like I've seen some media sites actually talk about the film and how it's gauged. And to me, when you've got that many sources saying that this film kind of has that one focal point of just being a personal attack, I was kind of like, I'm just not going to waste my time with it. Will I see it? maybe it doesn't fall into my taste of movies.
I think CNN now is like kind of replaying it. I think on their network.
Well, no, how much they're getting paid to do it.
I'm
sure they're making a pretty penny off of that rebroadcast. And since when does a major news network show you a documentary film?
Because it need ratings.
Ouch.
Well,
Bluetooth's not doing it anymore, huh?
But no, it's
Cooper show's going down.
For me,
Unless you're Wales.
For me, it's one of those films that's just maybe it has gotten my curiosity. Maybe I'm curious to see what it's about, but at the same time, there's that process in my head that goes like, am I going to sit here, watch this whole thing, and really appreciate it? And that was the other thing. I just viewed as Blackfish as like, am I really going to appreciate a bunch of? I mean, don't get me wrong. I feel like they're going to be a bunch of whiny brats just saying, we don't like this. We're going to make a film about it.
Sounds like PETA.
And yeah. So, but
I appreciate the fact that it was done. I appreciate they took the time to find the old footage and whatnot, but they found the wrong footage. I mean, apparently one whale looks like every whale. They weren't looking distinctly. I mean, they took the time to find people who don't work at a company anymore, haven't worked there for, in some cases, well over a decade, to comment on a current issue. Then and now are two very different things. It's like asking me to tell you what the Great Depression was like.
Exactly.
I don't know. I wasn't there.
And one thing to touch on what you say about, the footage that they found, it's the fucking 60s. Excuse my language, sorry about that. Nobody knew what they were doing back then. That's right, sorry. I mean, normally into the 60s and into the 70s. In the 70s, you got lawn darts, you got the Pinto, you got...
Gremlins.
Exactly. You got all these stupid fucking things. They weren't working right. There was no laws, there were no regulations about anything like that. And so if you ask me, it's just a bunch of hokum. Too many people use the psychology of, the movie magic of playing violin, showing sad images and everything.
It's emotional terrorism, is what it is.
Exactly.
It's emotional terrorism.
It's
like when you see those, Adopt Me commercials for pets and such, and on, like, TV, Sarah McLachlan.
Yep.
That's emotional terrorism. And that's the majority of what that film is,
True. I think the only difference, though, is with what Sarah McLachlan does, is obviously the message they're trying to get at is very positive. They do want you to help adopt these poor pets, as opposed to this movie, which just kind of, like you say, it's a very biased. There's no chance for the company to defend itself, and rumor has it that a lot of the people that are on the film didn't even know they were being filmed, didn't know the image was going to be used. That was me. I mean, I tried to sue the pants off them for not using my image with my permission. It's just my personal input there.
And that's, like I was saying earlier, it's not one of those films that I think I could sit down and really appreciate. And again, it does have my curiosity, but it's just, at the same time, I'm so up in the air about it. When it comes to the movies that I've recently seen, though, I mean, Lego Movie, just that movie you can have so much fun with. Like, I saw it in theaters when I saw it in theaters, I really I did not expect that much of it.
And I did not either.
And it surprised me. It really did. Not the fact it's a family film, but it's also got that, it's got the references that you have your young adult audience that are familiar with. I mean,
there's a lot of pop culture references.
Yeah, there's
grew up in the 80s and 90s that you get with Legos and the way they look and parts that broke and
it's entertaining for the kids of this generation too, because it flows, it goes well, and that's one of the movies where everything's Legos, everything's kids are yay, but
just like
it works. Yeah, just like that. The other one I saw,
it's a fat helmet.
And again, I said that was one of those films that I don't know if I would really appreciate it, liked it, but I did. So, I mean, it surprised me. It really did. I took that movie as a bit of a chance, a risk. I was like, you know what? It's kind of out there, but I don't really give that many out there movies a shot, so I'll go for it. And I'm very glad I did. That's one movie I've seen recently. The other one I caught on Netflix, so just flipping through, just trying to find something to watch. Knights of Badassdom with Peter Dinklage and Steve Zahn.
Ryan Quanten, and Summer Glau, Steve Zahn, yes.
Yeah, and it's it's a fun, mediocre movie about LARPing, which is live action role playing.
You would know that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I think all of us would know that, wouldn't we?
Yeah. We all have experience.
We all have experience
with LARPing.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a cheap.
I can't shame you.
It's a cheap film, 2013, and it was just, to me, it was fun. It's not meant to be like a serious dramatic film. Like they didn't have a budget of 30-40 grand or whatever
It's
like
like
that.
a Kevin Smith film. It's like a $4 million budget.
It was real. But it was fun. Like I saw the actors having fun. I saw them being themselves. I didn't see them have to kind of force it.
Yeah.
And those are the movies that just they're out there. You might not see them right away, but to me, it was one of those movies that do I completely appreciate it? Still a little skeptical on it, but it was just I think it was entertaining for the amount of time that I spent with it. So that was another one recently, and
over the last couple of days, I've had a little more fun watching films. It's nice getting off work early. You have the rest of the afternoon. Went and saw Foxcatcher finally, which is a film I've been really looking forward to. I'm praying to God it's going to end up in the Oscar race for Best Actor, Best Director, Best Picture. It's a very slow film. That will be my only complaint about it, is that it is very slow. There's very little film score to it, but what score is there is effective. So I can see the idea. I can see the reasoning behind it. It almost felt like, not really like a film, but that you're stepping into a moment. And you're simply there observing it and just watching it. And then you step out of it into another moment, and out into another moment, and in and out of moments. That never really felt like I'm watching a movie. It was on the border of documentary, and it was so good, and the dedication for actors, and completely losing themselves in a character, I believed it. And after about 20 minutes, I bought Steve Carell as Jean Dupont in that time, in the 80s, during the Olympics, training the wrestlers. It's a very good film. It's very deep. It speaks a lot about the bond of brotherhood. Also about the fact that at the time, wrestling was not really a supported sport in America. And you see these poor guys struggling to make ends meet, and that's where a character like John DuPont comes in, where he says, I'll fund you if we keep the team here, we do this, you represent me as this, and I'm represented as your coach, and this, that, and the other. It's a very good film. I highly recommend seeing, especially, I think once the Oscars come closer and closer, and as that time of the year comes closer, we'll be focusing more on Oscar films. Ones that I am looking forward to, The Imitation Game, Benedict Cumberbatch, Keira Knightley is one I'm very much looking forward to, about Alan Turing and breaking the Enigma codes for the Nazis during the war. The Theory of Everything, with Eddie Redmayne and Felicity Jones, that's one I was not really keen on, but after some of the reviews I've heard and read, it's actually garnered my attention more and more on kind of the romantic life of Stephen Hawking before he had succumbed to his disease, and the people that stood by him, and even the people that didn't. It looks, from what it seemed on the border of like an ABC Family film, or like something you'd see on Lifetime, but from everything I've heard about the performances, is just amazing and sells it. And it's that they're saying it's a shoo-in. He's gonna be in the Oscars for Best Actor. He's got to be nominated for Best Actor. Like, all right, well, I'll see it and see if I agree with you. Obviously, some of the summer films we've seen, I'm hoping are back in there again. I recently watched Maleficent. That was 2 hours of my life I want back. Not that it wasn't good. I think it was a little more beefed up than it should have been, and it took a classic Disney film and kind of turned it on its ear and made it into something that it really wasn't ever meant to be. I mean, I'm all for a different perspective. I would love to see Aladdin from like Jafar's perspective, or to see like what's the other one I'm thinking of right now on the top of my head? Oh shoot, what is it? It's right there. I have the title.
Beauty and the Beast.
No.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Bambi. No, I'm kidding. Bambi from the Hunter's Land.
I've got to be my family.
But no, Little Mermaid. If I can see the Little Mermaid from like Ursula's perspective, but please do not make her the friggin' hero. I don't want to. I want to understand them. I want to even sympathize with them, but don't make them the hero. Do not make them the good guy. That is something I'm really hoping that as I get into more of these kind of darker hero films, like Suicide Squad is coming up, I'm really praying to God that they do not turn that film on its side and say, these are the heroes. No. They're the bad guys. That's how they're written. That's how they're designed to be.
Right.
Keep them the bad guys.
And that's been my issue with a couple other movies that I've seen. I mean, I'm as we're talking about the whole villain thing, one movie that came out that I'm still to this day, it bugs me because I'm a fan of its game, I'm a fan of the franchise, was Resident Evil Apocalypse, when they made Nemesis kind of that hero figure at the end, and the original way he's his original way is that he's not he's a villain. He do not make him a hero, and that's one of the things in Hollywood. They kind of flip around. They take someone that's so iconic or whatever, and they make him a hero. And another person, actually, they did that too. And this one, actually, it really did kind of hit me because it's another game franchise that I follow, would be Silent Hill. Silent Hill Revelations, they made Pyramid Head a hero. Now, anybody that's followed the game, no, not close.
No,
not even close.
No.
Well, no, just the way what Pyramid Head represents. Now, they did change it for the films, but it's just one of those things. It's like when you take a villain, keep it a villain. You can have their perspective. But, I mean, even Wesker in Resident Evil, they still made him a villain. But they just kind of pick and choose of who's going to be the good and who's going to be the bad and who's going to be the ugly. But
that's a good movie, too. All right, folks. Well,
what about the
we were talking earlier. Yeah, that's right. We were talking earlier about AMC. AMC Theaters apparently is testing out a new potential way to watch movies. You can buy a monthly pass between the range of $35 to $45 a month and see as many movies as you want. They're testing it out, I believe, in Boston. They're trying it out with some of their theaters out there to see how it takes, how the sales are. And I would love it if this takes off and goes national in America. So you could potentially pay the price you would for, let's say, a one night at the movies with you and your date. You might spend $30 to $40 between the two of you.
Right.
Pay that for the month and go see like 10 movies in a 4-week period.
Where do I sign up?
Right?
Right.
I really hope this goes because I would love it. That's what I used to do on my days off. I'd go to the movies.
Right.
I go to like the first show, before 12 o'clock, 7:50. Then I get like a little $6 popcorn, and I'm cool. That's a fun day for me.
And then even when you go to the theater, it's just like people ask, it's like, why do you pay that price to go to the theater? And it's like, for me, it's kind of like the ambiance. You're sitting in it's the experience. You sit in that theater and you're watching the film on the big screen. As for some people it's entertaining. For some people they will watch it on their little 32-inch screen or whatever like that. But to me, it's
why you gotta make fun of my 32-inch screen?
Because it's right there.
Why you gotta reference it like that? What did it ever do to you?
Well, it might be 31.7, but that's not the case. When you go to a theater, you have fun, and that's what people like to enjoy. The fact that with the rising movie prices, theaters have noticed in the past couple years that the audience that they were bringing in has gone down, and they've tried different things with concessions and all that stuff, like
marathons.
Marathons
are my favorite.
And to me, it's like what's another thing too, like. Even when we've seen like the 87 Batman?
Oh yeah, the classic series.
The classic.
They do. Certain theater chains do a classic series where they bring back older films that were released maybe before your time.
And they do it for a cheap price.
Yeah, and they do it we went and saw Batman, the Tim Burton Batman film from 1989. We saw it for $6 at 7 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. Usually past 5 o'clock, you're paying full price of like $12. Right. We saw it for half that. We still saw a great movie.
Yeah.
In a not really crowded theater.
Right.
And it was worth it.
Yeah. And it's a fun experience. You have the pass, so you're not worried about...
You're not worried about having to pay a ticket price every time you go.
Ticket price, yeah.
You just go up,
there you go.
Do you still have tickets for this show? I have my pass, da-da-da. And they maybe they swipe it, and you get your ticket, and you're on your way.
Now here's something interesting. Do you think it's going to throw off box office numbers? Like opening weekends and things?
No, they still...
No, I think... I think it could, but I really think box office numbers should not necessarily be estimated by how much money you spent,
right,
but how many tickets are actually gone. Like, our price here that we pay for a movie, let's say, okay, we're paying $12. National average is about $9 nationally.
Right.
If you took all the numbers from all the states, the national average of the ticket price is $9.
Okay.
I don't think so, because we pay $3 more.
True. But I'm saying if you buy a movie pass and you go and you get to see something that comes out on opening weekend, like Guardians of the Galaxy, which had a lot of numbers and stuff, is that going to affect their profit, for...
I don't think so, because I don't think every theater chain will do that. I think right now it's just one theater chain doing it,
mm-hmm.
trying it. But overall, I don't think that will affect the numbers at all for for weekend box offices for profit of a film, because you're still going to be able to estimate that off of other theater chains that are bringing in the same film with a ticket price on their stamp, as opposed to just a movie pass. And even still, with a movie pass, it still might be rang up as, this is that movie, this is the time they saw it at, so this is the price it would be.
But that money.
So are those numbers misleading, or are they still going to be pretty accurate? Because another thing with the movie pass, you can see as many movies as you want.
As many times as you want.
As many times you want. And that's actually another advantage of having the movie pass, is that you could be like, I really like this film. I love the experience I had it with the theaters. I want to see it again.
Yeah.
So you go to the theaters again. And drag your friends and be like, hey, let's go to the theaters again.
Well, people do that anyways. I mean,
no, I know. I mean, like in the past, I've gone to a theater to see one film multiple times, and to me, it was fun every time. I picked up new stuff. I got different bits from the film, because maybe the audience or crowd was laughing at a certain scene or something, so I couldn't really make out what they were saying. Like even in the Avengers. You know, like the Hulk is swinging around Loki and stuff. There's actually a scene on the ground when Loki's laying on the ground, and he's like shocked. He's like, what the hell just happened? He lets out a little gasp of air. He's like, ugh. But you couldn't hear that in theaters because everybody's just like... So it's just those little details sometimes you pick up when you go watch a movie again. And, you know, a theater does offer that surround system. It offers that big screen, so if you want to catch detail, it's going to be in your face. So that's the other advantage I see to it, of having a pass.
Yeah. I really hope it takes off.
Yeah.
I'd love to have that, because I'd be going to movies every other day and every weekend to just pick up, especially the films we just talked about. If it becomes a big thing within the next few months, right around time Oscar season comes, obviously I'm going to be at the theater trying to catch every potential Oscar film that's coming out before we get to that night. That's
another thing I kind of want to do is catch up on, because I'm a comedy.
You're a comedy, yes. You're hilarious.
Yes, I am very hilarious. But those are the kind of films that kind of gauge me is like the comedy stuff. When there's drama and stuff, or even action. Let's go with action too. Okay. It's like I appreciate the films like The Punisher, The Purge. What else starts with a P? But
I got a few words.
But those kind of films, to me, they're entertaining. And like with a movie pass, I can catch up on the films that they've been nominated for Golden Globe. I'm curious. I want to see why. And I feel having a pass, I would have that opportunity. And another thing, as you also went into marathons too, do you think a pass? What influence do you think a pass will have?
I think marathons will be a separate thing. I would keep it a separate thing.
To me, that makes sense because marathons. It's like a special event sort of thing. So keep it that way. And as you go with marathons, what do you say for 3D and what do you say for IMAX and just like 3D regular screening?
I don't go to 3D movies.
What I've heard, and for the
movie I know, pass, I'm not the majority. Yeah,
they're saying the movie pass will range in price based upon what you want to view. If you want to see unlimited regular showings, it's going to be a base price of this X amount of dollars. If you want to see maybe unlimited regular screenings and maybe at least two IMAX shows within that month, they're going to make it a little bit more expensive to kind of
balance it.
So that's another thing to kind of
consider
when you're looking to get a pass. Do you see many IMAX movies? Do you see many 3D movies, or are you just there and you'd be like, you know what, a regular movie I can suffice with? It's like with all the different things you got now with IMAX, sometimes it's a bit more of an experience to go see it that way. I mean, Dark Knight was kind of the big one for that, as bringing IMAXs to the light. Yeah,
public domain.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, get out there and support your films.
Yes, absolutely. Go out there. Go see some movies, especially this holiday week when we have Christmas coming up, folks. Obviously, we're in the middle of Hanukkah right now. If you do celebrate Hanukkah, I hope you're lighting your candles. Go see some movies. Go have some time with your family. Thanks for listening to our podcast this week. This is CineMunn Podcast. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Whatever you celebrate it. Thank you for listening to our show. We will be skipping our Wednesday show. So we will not be doing a movie quote of the day this show. We will not be back on the 24th. It is Christmas Eve. So we will be skipping that and spending time with our families. We'll be back next Sunday, though, just before the New Year. So hit us up again here on YouTube for our next show. I'd like to thank my guests again, Benjamin Briggs.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
And Tommy Metropolis.
Thank you very much, Vince.
Have a great holiday, folks. Thanks for listening to CineMunn Podcast. Follow us on. Please subscribe to the page if you like the video. Leave comments in the comments section. Follow us on Twitter @CineMunn. We look forward to hearing from you again.